Chapter 21. The story of life, but not as we know it. People are growing more curious to understand who they are in relation to the world around them. Are they a vital part or an insignificant bit player in the universe? Again, this is a matter of perspective. If we consider our physical size compared to the almost incomprehensible size of the universe, we can feel powerless to exert any influence on our surroundings. However, if we look deeper into the structure of thought, form, and consciousness, we discover that we all individually play a crucial part in what goes on around us every day. With insights from Thomas Troward, the Edinburgh Lectures on Mental Science 1904, and also physicist Nassim Haramein, the Resonance Science Foundation, amongst others. I have studied many ideas and sources regarding this subject. It is generally accepted that we are a combination of life, spirit, soul, and body. Let's look at how that plays out in us and our self-image. There is often confusion about spirit and soul. Are they the same thing? Our souls are attuned to our senses and our level of understanding, or finite rational concepts, which is why our feelings can shift and change according to what is happening around us. Because everything is changing constantly in our surroundings and in our relationships with other people, if we are governed primarily by our soul, we can struggle to find rest within ourselves in relation to what others think and say about us. This can also affect us in relation to our reactions to outside stimuli. When our spirits are attuned to the universal intelligence or infinite potential, that quiet inner voice that seems to emanate from our guts, it allows us to have a higher perspective on what is going on around us and make better choices. Our body is physical, and through our senses, it connects and interacts with the outer world. Since the most obvious difference between spirit and body is the physical and non-physical differences, going forward, I will take spirit to be mind and body to be matter. Definition of mind or spirit. The non-physical part of a person, which can be described as character, the psyche, inner self, inner being, essential being, and self-image. Since emotions are a form of energy, I'll also include them here. In general, the parts of us that we feel but aren't visible. Definition of matter, or substance and form. Physical substance in general, as distinct from mind. In physics, that which occupies space and possesses rest mass, and is visible as distinct from energy. Mass without movement or energy is seen as dead, inasmuch as it shows no signs of life. You wouldn't consider a rock as having life. However, at a subatomic level, that rock is alive with vibrating atoms, moving particles at rapid speeds. So even though we attribute life to movement and dead to its absence, our understanding of these words can cause us to miss some key points. We must look deeper than what our senses are telling us. The solution to this won't be found by comparing what we call aliveness to what we call deadness. The answer is in comparing one degree of aliveness with another. We see a plant as being alive, however, we also see that the aliveness of a plant is quite different to the aliveness of an animal or a fish, and different again to the aliveness of a human. The plant, animal, fish, and human are all alive, but there is a difference to their aliveness, and I believe that the difference is in the quality of their aliveness, as in the degree of intelligence and self-awareness. With this measurement in mind, an animal and fish are higher than a plant, and a human higher than an animal. This intelligence can be measured according to the level of self-recognition. I now understand this to be consciousness. The more self-conscious, the more self-control and self-motion. The lower levels of intelligence operate more in automatic motion, not subject to the self-conscious intelligence. The lowest of these visible forms are entirely without self-recognition. Based on that, we can say that the measure of aliveness of life consists in intelligence, in other words, in the power of thought, imagination, and self-consciousness. So, we can also conclude that the distinctive quality of mind is thought. We cannot conceive of matter without form. There must be some form, even if it is invisible to the human eye. For something to be called matter at all, it must occupy space. So, taking the above into account, we can say that the distinctive quality of mind is thought, and the distinctive quality of matter is form. We will see later that this understanding leads us on to some interesting consequences. Form implies extension in space and also limitations within certain boundaries. Thought implies neither. When we think of life as existing in a particular form, we associate it with the idea of extension in space, so that an elephant could be said to consist of a vastly larger amount of living substance than a mouse. However, if we think of life as the fact of aliveness, we do not associate it with any idea of extension in space, and we realize that the mouse is as much alive as the elephant, regardless of the difference in their size. The point of this is to try to understand that if we can conceive of anything as being totally devoid of the element of extension in space, we find that, since it cannot be nowhere, it must be present in its entirety anywhere and everywhere, in every point of space simultaneously. As we saw earlier, the scientific definition of time is that it is the period occupied by a body in passing from one point of space to another, and therefore, according to this definition, when there is no form or movement in space, there can be no time associated with it. So, since mind is devoid of the element of form, it must also be devoid of the element of time. We find that if mind is pure thought, it must therefore exist outside of the concept of time and space. This leads us to conclude that every thought must always be in the here and now. Since it has no extension of matter in space, it is not bound by time or place. Matter, which is bound by the rules of space and time, is therefore of lower power and intelligence than mind, and controlled by it. Based on this, the old aphorism, mind over matter, would seem to be correct. Going back to what we looked at in Chapter 15, the universe and everything in it, including us, has the same building blocks, the atom. Is not every structure of matter simply a collection of these atoms, millions of them in everything at different scales, even ourselves? Our bodies are made up of millions of individual cells, each one playing a role in the collective. Each cell is made up of millions of smaller subatomic particles with different names. All big things are made from small things. What is seen is made from what we cannot see. We make different structure divisions in science, such as mathematics, quantum mechanics, physics, biochemistry, chemistry, biology, neuroscience, and psychology. However, the universe doesn't recognize those structures. It sees only one structure, one whole of which all these sciences are intrinsically joined. We do it also with our world. We divide land into different segments, call them by different names, color them differently on a map, and occasionally fight over the placing of those lines. But the planet does not see lines. It only knows it as one place with different areas having different attributes. Here we can bring up the important question of infinity and finite. Where is that line between infinite potential and finite rational concepts? How do we connect infinite and finite systems? There must be a way, since both exist in us and in the universe. So, are we infinite or finite? It is a question most of us will search for an answer to at some point in our lives. To explain that concept as simply as possible, I'm going to give you an image of what Einstein called the field. The field encompasses everything we can see and everything we cannot see in our universe, including ourselves. It is the field of all energy, frequency, and information that surrounds us. It is a little complex, but stick with it. It will all click together soon. If we draw a circle, it encloses a certain volume. This is a finite volume. Let's call this the field, and we all live inside it. Each one of us has a set of unique coordinates inside this field. Let's visualize our position as a point, or dot. Let's put a triangle inside the circle. That gives us 3 independent points. If we add 2 more triangles, we get 9 points on the tips of the triangles and 18 points on the inside where they cross. Now we have 27 independent points inside the enclosed circle, the field. However, they are all connected where they cross. These mini-networks are like our family and friends, our social connections, etc. When you meet someone new, you literally cross their path. Inside this shape, you can see that we have the same exact circle that we started with. We just duplicated the second circle with the triangles, and we can repeat that many times within the original circle. There is room for many more connections. While each of these boundaries are smaller, their coordinates are different from all other centers. This means that each of the points, although they are part of a similar geometry that is interactive with each other, exist independently, just like we do. These points all have their own very specific coordinates in spacetime, and they observe the rest of the fractal structure from their own very specific point of view. We are all individuals within the field. You can continue to create new points and go to infinity. However, it would never exceed the original boundary of the finite circle that was set up. So, within the confines of a finite space, we can embed an infinite amount of information and an infinite number of points and divisions. This is genomically true. Within the energy, frequency, and information levels, we are all connected. According to the standard model of particle physics, the particles that make up an atom, the quarks and electrons, are called point particles. They do not take up space. Physical space is often regarded as infinitely divisible. It is thought that any region in space, no matter how small, could be further split. You have an infinite amount of information potential within yourself. Now, can you start to understand the infinite nature of your existence and the infinite number of possibilities available to you? Every desire you have is already available in concept form within this field of infinite structure, which is the fourth dimension. Your imagination and the emotional frequency you add to it puts visible form onto your desires and brings them into your reality. It is no longer just a metaphysical concept, a belief or dogma. It's actually a quantum mathematical equation. The one thing that is common to both the perceived finite and the infinite is space. The distance between particles, even at the smallest known levels, is 99% space. The matter that we perceive in the world around us is almost exclusively space. In fact, when you look at yourself in the mirror, you perceive only the matter. However, you are made up of mostly space. What does this mean? Perhaps that it is the space that defines matter and not matter defining space as we perceive it. What's going on in that space? It is now generally accepted that it is energy and information. The electrons, neutrons, positrons, and quarks are elementary particles and a fundamental constituent of matter. Quarks combine to form composite particles called hadrons, the most stable of which are protons and neutrons. The components of atomic nuclei in each atom are appearing and disappearing at a rapid rate, as shown in experiments done on energy in a vacuum. This is a difficult concept to get your head around, so let's not park here. This is the underlying structure of space, and even though you are not aware of it, you are interacting with that structure every moment of every day. While we are all individual, as are each of the points in the example above, we are an intrinsic part of the whole structure inside the circle or field, and we consistently interact with the whole. Our individual point of perspective helps to make up the whole. As we learned in the last chapter, Einstein called the whole the field. Remember what he said. The field is the sole governing agency of the particle. Everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. As we interact within the field, we impress it with our perspective. The field is also learning about you and your experience. It picks up a piece of information and drops a piece of information. The information it picks up tells us about the reality of what is going on around us, and we leave a piece of information about our interaction with it. This is almost exclusively in our subconscious mind, and we are generally not aware of it. If we were to listen to the stories we continually tell ourselves, that conversation we have within our heads of everything that is going on around us, we would be more aware of what we are communicating into the field. When we collectively feed information into the field, we call it reality, and the information we bring back inside allows us to put structure on our perceptions. Your perception of you is, more often than not, built on the perceptions that you collect from other people's perception of you. The feedback you receive from others regarding who you are and what you are like is often stronger than our own opinion of who we are. If you want to know who you really are or who you can really become, you need to create that on the inside of you and then feed it into the field, where others will pick it up and reflect it back to you. You can influence the outer reality, however. The outer reality can influence you too. You are informing the universe about your specific point of view of who you are. You can create your reality from inside yourself. The other part of the feedback loop is that your perception of reality is defining you too. Your image of yourself is being fed by you into the field. When people pick that up and reflect it back to you, they confirm your position in the universe to you. Okay, this takes time to understand. Let me put it this way. If you want to change the opinion other people have of you, you need to start feeding a different image of you into the field. And that can only start by you changing the image you have of yourself on the inside of you. It takes time for you to impress upon the field the changes you are making to your image of you, and it takes time for others to also change their image of you. During this time, you need to persist in continually clarifying that new image of yourself. Remember that reality is made up of our collective input. The field is holding the information of everybody, and it is feeding you back the experience that is in coordination with everything else, so that there is a consensus reality. As we set up images in our mind, get clear pictures in our imagination, and add emotion to it, we actually alter the fourth dimension, which alters the three-dimensional world around us. Everything you see around you in the three-dimensional world was first conceived in the spiritual world of thought, imagination, and emotion. This is the creative world. This is where we need to spend more of our time. This is where we can alter everything about our lives in the physical world. As a side note, this comes naturally to a child. They live their early years in their imagination and the emotional feedback they get from the world around them. In those early months and years, their reactions are based almost exclusively on the information they receive from their feelings. As they grow, they begin to recognize that their senses are sending them important information about their surroundings, and as they grow older, they learn to rely on this feedback as their primary source. How often have children who hang on to the ability to spend time in their imagination been told that they are daydreamers and they will never succeed if they don't tune into reality? So, am I saying that we can create a whole new life for ourselves simply by altering our thinking, building a strong and detailed image of that new life in our imagination, and adding the emotions of peace, joy, gratitude, and expectation? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. You've already done that to create the life you are currently living, even if you were not conscious of what you were doing. Haven't you wondered how come you just seem to go around the same old situations time and again? You are feeding that same information into the field every day. If you believe that a person's thoughts can limit them, then it must also be true that a person's thoughts can free them. So, like the fly on my car window, do you think you can change things by working harder? I'm afraid not. Can you get warm by thinking about being cold, or can you change your life by thinking about what you have or have not right now? No, you can make changes by creating the life you want in your mind, building a detailed image of that life, adding your emotions, your faith, belief, gratitude, expectation, and speaking your vision out loud so you can hear it yourself. Speaking your thoughts out loud helps you to clarify them, and hearing your own words with your ears helps you to build better images in your head. In order to put words on your thoughts, they must first form in you, and they are directly influenced by your character and your self-image. What comes out your mouth reveals what is going on inside you. Like any seed you sow, you need to keep that image of you in the best growing environment you can. That is, keep it warm with your belief and fed with your expectation, and keep doubt out. The clearer you can visualize that image of yourself, and the more of the emotion that springs from belief and expectation that you add, the sooner you will experience that image as a reality. When you can see the invisible, believe the incredible, and expect the extraordinary, you will achieve the impossible. Okay, you're ready for the next exciting step to understanding how our conscious and subconscious minds work, and how we can get the best from them. Quote, The universe is under no obligation to make sense to you. Neil deGrasse Tyson.